Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio in Cumming, Georgia, it's time for Forsyth Business Radio.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of Forsyth Business Radio. I am your host, Amanda Pierce-Marmolejo, and welcome Susan Brown, the owner of Right at Home Agency, which is located in North Atlanta. Right at Home provides a range of in-home care options for seniors and adults with disabilities. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and get the word out about what we do and how many of your listeners might be struggling with some aging family members, parents, aunts, uncles that have certain disease processes that they're going through, like dementia or Parkinson's, or maybe just generally the aging process of struggles with ambulation and taking their medication properly. So what we do is we provide care in the home for senior adults. So what that means is it's wherever home is. So it could be in an individual home, it could be in an assisted living, a memory care. Sometimes senior adults are in the hospital and they may have broken a hip and they have dementia and don't understand they can't get up without assistance. So they might need us at the bedside at the hospital or a rehab facility. So my husband and I started this agency over 14 years ago, and we have a huge heart for caring for people, but also just for helping a family just navigate through this aging and disease process. It's a difficult season of life, not only for the senior adult, but for the family, and trying to figure out what is best to do for their loved one.
Give some examples or some scenarios maybe of how you're able to help loved ones care for their family members that you mentioned are going through this process.
Yes, that's a great question. So when I talk to a family, I want to find out what's going on. So family members typically call me in a panic because they've realized that dad is starting to fall. He's had several falls. Fortunately, maybe he hasn't broken a hip or a pelvis, but he is getting more forgetful. They notice that they're not sure he's taking his medication properly. They go over, they see him on the weekend and go back and see him the following weekend and realize he's still wearing the same shirt he was wearing last weekend, or maybe hasn't showered, and those sorts of things. So what we do is we come into the home and we can help people with all kinds of activities of daily living is what they call them, but it's helping people shower safely. If you have a parent that is starting to fall, them showering independently is a huge risk because you do not want your parent or loved one to fall and break a hip or pelvis. That can be very catastrophic for their life moving forward and affect their quality of life. So we can help people shower, get dressed. Medication management is a very important part because senior adults, lots of them, unfortunately, are on several medications, and it's if they're not compliant with those medications, it can cause a lot of issues. So we are in the home. We make sure people are taking their medications properly. Viewers who have loved ones with Parkinson's, you know how important it is, that medication regimen, for them to keep that medication on board in certain increments of time throughout the day. So we also will drive people to doctor's appointments, and we do a lot of transition from hospital or rehab to home. So if your loved one is in the hospital, say they've had pneumonia, lots of times when they're released, they're very weak. So again, risk for falls. So people hire us to come into the home to help support their loved one until they regain their strength. So those are the sorts of things we do.
You mentioned a variety of scenarios. So I'll give you a personal example and maybe you can help me understand. On a temporary basis and or long term. For instance, someone was in the hospital because they were having a heart scare and they were released home safely. However, there's no one there to kind of monitor them throughout the day. But they might not need care forever.
That's perfect. That's our goal, is we want that senior adult to get back to where they were and return to the quality of life that they had prior to whatever illness that they were dealing with. So some people just need to have us for a couple of weeks. Some may be months. Some may be ongoing until the end of their life. So it's just really important to understand what your parent wants. Do you want them to stay at home through the remainder of their life? Or is it time to start looking at an assisted living or memory care or independent living community? So there's lots of options. And when I talk to families, my goal is always to help direct you to what's the best scenario for your family member. In-home care, what we do may not be the best solution. It might be better for them to have socialization and enter into an independent living community. So I feel very passionate about helping families make the right decision for them.
Not everybody's case is a one size fits all, and their needs are very different. And it sounds like your plans are uniquely tailored to meet each individual. Susan, your passion is evident in when you're speaking about how you're able to help people. And I'm curious where that passion derives. So maybe you can share your personal story and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Well, after I graduated from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, go Tar Heels, getting ready for basketball season. We're hoping to make the Final Four this year. My mom, I grew up in a small town in West Virginia, and my mom got sick about 16 years ago. And that's when I was faced with managing her care when she came out of the hospital after having open heart surgery. My dad had passed away when I was a lot younger. And so I was a single mom at the time, and I was faced with, how am I going to manage this? I could only be with her for a couple of weeks. And I started looking around at her friends, and I started learning about agencies like mine. Unfortunately, there were not any agencies like mine in my small town, and I saw my mom's friends hiring all these private people, word of mouth through the town. Her best friend had a husband who had Alzheimer's, and they had hired a woman who was word of mouth, who would come in to start providing care for him. She was there 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and she had been caring for him for about 2 years. And one day she was doing laundry and was going down the basement steps, fell, hurt herself. And they said, oh, if you've injured yourself, we'll pay for you to go to the doctor, any medication you may need. And she said, oh no, I can never work again because I was caring for your husband. She went to the emergency room. She told them that she was hurt at work. They look at that to be a workers' comp. She sued the family and won a very big settlement. So not only financially was that devastating for the family, at the end of the day, this woman was his motivator. She was the one he trusted to get him up and showered and dressed. And so as a result of that, they had to move him into a skilled care nursing facility where he passed away shortly after. So I just feel truly this is God's calling for my life. I want to help people manage through this disease and aging process. Like I said, it's a difficult season of life. But people do not realize the risk that they take putting private caregivers in the home. All of my caregivers, we have 180 caregivers, and we put them through the fingerprinting system, which what that means is if something happens and we hire someone and they've been arrested, we're notified. We also do drug testing, and they're all covered with workers' comp and liability insurance. So if someone is injured in your home, transferring mom in or out of the shower, you do not have to worry. You're not liable for that. But if you put a private person in your home, it's a risk that you run.
So you're really giving that peace of mind, that ultimate peace of mind to the families. Prevention is something that comes to mind, Susan. Let's say we have an aging parent and we'd like to get ahead of this and kind of put something in place before that slip and fall happens or before something actually occurs. What measures could one take as far as prevention?
That is such a great question because I love it when people call me before the incident happens. A perfect one is the falls. So if someone is seeing a loved one who is falling, it's very important. That means they're unstable for them to have someone there showering. So maybe they just hire us to come in 3 days a week, and we're there 3 days a week. And while we're there, mom knows she's not going to shower unless we're there to help her safely in and out of the shower. That way, it's just a little bit of support. If you ignore those signs and mom falls and breaks her hip or pelvis, she may need 24-hour care from us in order to stay at home after having surgery and going through rehab. And you just don't know what the outcome is going to be. So I love it when I get these calls from family members up front.
Are you able to work with insurance? How does that kind of fall into the realm of healthcare? I'm totally unaware of how that would work. So please educate us.
Yes, so this is very confusing for families. Unfortunately, Medicare does not look at us as skilled care, so we are not covered by Medicare. The only insurance policies that cover our care are long-term care insurance policies. There are a few policies out there. We're hoping it's going to start increasing because this is a real need for people who are needing additional help. It's going to keep them out of the hospital if we're there helping them make sure they're taking their medication right and showering safely and getting dressed safely. Also, if someone is a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, there is a benefit called the VA Aid and Attendance Program that a lot of people do not know about. It's a needs-based program. So there are a number of people we care for who do get that additional money each month to help pay or offset our services. It can also offset the cost of an assisted living or memory care as well. And we also have a contract with the VA. So if you're a veteran or your spouse is a veteran or your parent, the VA will pay us for a certain amount of hours per week to care for your loved one if you fall into that criteria.
It sounds like you're pretty experienced in helping your clients and families navigate the waters to access the benefits.
So one of the things I also wanted to mention about the getting involved early is we come into situations a lot with couples where one of them is the primary caregiver of the other. And what we see a lot is something will happen to the primary caregiver first because they're caring for their spouse and not taking care of their own health. And a situation like this happened where we went in, I met a couple, and the husband told me that his wife used to be the best cook in the South, but she had stopped cooking because she was starting to fall and she didn't want to stand at the stove. She also was starting to have memory issues and had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So they were living on takeout. And so the family wanted us to come in and start providing showers and meal preparation, things like that. So what we did is we placed a caregiver with her that loved to cook. So what they would do is they would get out all of her old cookbooks and go through them and plan their meals for the week. And when we first started providing care for her, she could go to the grocery store with us. But as she progressed, she couldn't. But the daughter called me one day and said, I have to tell you, I have not seen Mom this happy in years. She said, every weekend when I see her, she wants me to get down the cookbooks and help me figure out what Sharice and I are going to cook for the week. So we gave her a renewed quality of life, and her husband loved it because he was getting his best favorite meals again. But that's one thing that I feel really sets my agency apart is we really take time to get to know the person that we're caring for. It's not just about their physical limitations or needs. It's who they are as a person. This woman loved to cook, so we brought that joy back into her life.
A renewed quality of life. And you mentioned how important it was for you to serve in this capacity because you truly felt that it was God's calling. I'd just love for you to share your passion and that call and, your path to establishing your agency with our listeners.
Yes, I do feel that this business is my ministry because I have such a passion for senior adults and making sure that they are protected and taken care of. And I think lots of times when the families call me, they are feeling guilty because they know they should be with Mom, but they want to go to their son's football game Friday night and their daughter's travel soccer. And I just feel that God has given me this gift to be able to guide people and into whatever it is that they need, whether it's us or a different living situation. That's how we live our life each day in my office. And I tell my staff, as tough as it can be some days, at the end of the day, we know we've made a difference, not only in the people we're caring for, but their families. And I truly feel it's a God thing. He led me to do this. And I feel very fortunate and blessed for all the families I've cared for.
I'm sure the families that you have impacted also feel the same. Now, it's a unique dynamic as Susan and her husband, Rob, both work together. They opened their office in March of 2010, and they are still innovating today, trying to find new ways to engage and better the lives of those within their community. Looking ahead, what would you see for yourself and for the agency within the next 5 years or so?
Well, I hope that we are going to continue to grow and care for more and more people. I've learned that so many people have never even heard that we exist. I didn't know we existed until I needed it. And unfortunately, didn't have that resource for my mom. So we want to continue to grow. There is a shortage of caregivers out there, so we're always looking for caregivers. We do have 180 now, which I know sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of needs out there. So we are in the process now of starting an internship program. So for students who are out there who are wanting to go to med school, PA school, nursing school, this is great experience. You can come to our office. My registered nurse can help train. What they will do is put them through a personal care assistant course. We will get you certified to work with us. We'll put you in the field with qualified CNA, certified nurse assistants, and you can learn about all these comorbidities and just the struggles that senior adults go through. The students that we have added to our team will come back to me and say, I had such a different perspective of what happens when a senior adult is in the hospital and they're discharged and they're so confused. Do I take the medication I was taking before? Do I just take what they've given me now? Do I take it all? So it's been a really great learning experience for them. And a lot of them have to have a certain amount of clinical hours in order to apply to school. So that's one of our big initiatives right now, is we want to grow that way with some bright minds who have a passion for caring for senior adults.
Oh, I love that. And you're kind of creating that awareness within the next generation of healthcare workers. Susan, speaking of lasting impact and effects, thankfully we are now in 2024 and we've all come out of the pandemic, but not everybody was impacted equally by the pandemic. What are some of the effects that you have seen? I'd just love for you to talk about the importance of seniors remaining active.
Right. So during COVID, it was very telling. Everyone, you watch the news or listen to the radio, everyone's talking about what happened to the kids in this COVID epidemic, but no one's really talking about what happened to the senior adults. And it was very devastating to them. And some of them are still suffering from the effects of it. What happened was they were so isolated. And so senior adults, it's very important. They're moving. They've got to get up. They've got to be active. I had numerous senior adults who were falling and breaking hips or pelvises, or got to the point that they lost all mobility. They couldn't even get up or out of bed or up out of a chair because they were isolated and not active. Also, the people with dementia, they didn't understand why they could not see their loved ones. So they were, again, isolated. It caused a lot of anxiety, saw a lot of progression in the dementia because they were just they did not understand what was happening. I had numerous people who were drinking too much, taking anxiety medication, which led to falls and other complications. So I think it was a time where it really highlighted the importance of socialization, mobility, exercise, medication compliance. So we provide care in a lot of communities, and especially independent livings where they don't actually have someone who's providing care for them there. A lot of those individuals were isolated in their apartments and not taking medications and drinking or overtaking medications. So it's just really important to make sure with your loved ones, you are keeping them active and giving them that socialization as well.
That's such an important word, socialization. Some people take it for granted. And truly the interaction that one might be having with your staff might be the only socialization that they get.
Right. And that's why it's really important for me when we start providing care to learn about the individual. What is it that they used to love to do? Like I mentioned, cooking, or it could be gardening. Maybe they can't get down and garden and plant the flowers this spring, but we can go to Home Depot and they can pick out what they want. And it gives them that quality of life. And as far as you mentioned, Virginia, I am part of a franchise system. So we're in, I think, 48 states in the United States. And I have connections with people in different areas. So if anyone has any questions and needs guidance, maybe they live here and their parents are in Virginia, I would be very happy to talk to you about what's going on and give you some guidance based on what's going on with your mom or dad as to what would be the best next steps for them. And I might be able to direct you to a Right at Home in that area, depending on where they live.
And Susan, what is the website?
So it's www.rah-northatl.com. I am in the North Atlanta area. My office is based in Alpharetta. And there are some other Right at Homes that are in different areas, but that's where I'm based out of. And
that number, if you're listening and you'd like to give them a call, is 770-343-6235.
I always want to say, let's prevent the preventable. And when you start seeing the signs, reach out for some guidance and see what's the next best steps to keep that person safe and keep them living a quality life.
We may kind of give a rundown of maybe the process to kind of get started, what it would look like if someone wanted to link up with you and go ahead and get things going.
So the process would be, you would reach out and give me a call, and we would talk about what's going on with your loved one. And then the next step would be, I would set up a time if you wanted me to. I would come out to the home. I would meet your loved one, any of your family members. I personally love to have as many family members there as possible so we can all talk about what's going on. Everyone can let me know their concerns, what's important for mom, what's important for dad. And it's important to me that the person we're caring for is a part of the process, because senior adults lots of times get lost because the kids just take over and start parenting and don't even include their parent in the decision. So I think when people first have someone coming in their home, they're very afraid. I'm going to have this stranger. And so that's why I like to go out and meet people so they can see I'm a normal person who went through the same thing with my family. My husband also went through it with his father. So we understand how afraid a lot of families are. So I do like to meet in person. However, I know a lot of people are very busy. So I and my nurse can get all the information that we need to create a care plan for your loved one on the phone, and we can do everything, via email if that's not something you have time to do. Or it could be someone who, like yourself, who's calling and they live in Virginia and their parents live here and they need help. So that would be the next steps. And then our nurse would create the care plan. I have a registered nurse who oversees all of our cases. She would go out and do an evaluation on our client, and she would go out every 90 days, and all families have access to her in between if they're concerned about anything like something on their skin or something that they're seeing that they're concerned about. So that's the next process, and then we would get started on what we're doing.
For those that are listening and they're curious about maybe the same person coming or a variety of folks, do you tend to have a nurse or a CNA that is assigned to a specific family, over and over again so they can develop that relationship?
Absolutely. I'm a very big advocate on consistency of care. Our caregivers want to go to the same place just as much as your loved one wants the same person. So it's just very important. We have to talk through what it is that the families want. And so we do typically have a 6-hour minimum to come out to the home, but sometimes we can do less than that. It just depends on what's going on. But I would talk the families through that. But yes, consistency of care is the most important thing, especially with someone with dementia. If families are really limited on what specific hours they want, we will make sure that we have someone who can provide that in that time frame. And if we don't have someone available, I'm going to let that family know, because I'm not going to be the reason that someone has a bad experience with home care. I don't want a revolving door of people going through their home.
Susan Brown, who is the owner of Right at Home, located here in Alpharetta, Georgia. For those of you listening who might have questions about adult aging care, or you just want to kind of start that prevention process, Susan and her team would be happy to speak with you to educate you and put something in place. For those of you listening who would like to find them online, you can visit them at
www.rah-northatl.com. You can also look at our reviews on caring.com. We are the top rated agency in the area.
I saw that. I was going to mention that you're #1 rated agency in North Atlanta on caring.com. And you're also a part of the Home Care Association of America.
Yes, we are.
Sounds like you and your team are well equipped to educate and assist, Susan. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of this information with our listeners, and also your passion and your talents. I'll let you have the final word before we wrap up, Susan.
I just want to thank you for the time, and I hope that your listeners who are struggling with this difficult season of life with loved ones understand they can give me a call, and I will help guide them through this process. I have lots of connections in the senior industry, so if we're not the answer for you, I will help you find the answer.
All right, Susan and her team want to end each day knowing that they've done something meaningful to improve everyone else's day and life. It is an opportunity to help those live to the fullest, and everything they do in business is grounded in that very passionate belief. Susan Brown, owner of Right at Home here in Alpharetta, thank you guys for joining us on this special segment of Forsyth Business Radio.